Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar event. My name is Joshua and I'm going to be your presenter today. It's promptly 1 p.m. Eastern Time today here on Thursday. We're here to talk about our payroll journal entry transaction. Before we get started on that, per the video presentation beforehand, click the little red or little white arrow inside the orange or red box there on your webinar sidebar there to minimize the webinar control panel, or drag the control panel off to your second desktop if you've got a dual monitor setup. Just allows you to get the full visual effect of the presentation. We're going to be here for the next 20 minutes or so. Please, if you have questions, type those into the questions portion of the webinar control panel for me. I'll do my best to keep an eye on those questions and get them answered for you. If I don't get them answered during the event, I'll certainly be happy to see what questions we have at the end and try to get them answered then for you at the very latest. Please keep the questions on topic, meaning about our payroll journal entry transactions. There may be another webinar event that's more suited to answer other questions that you have, or of course, our support technicians are here and available now to answer specific questions if you have them, okay? This essentially, folks, is a repeat of another event we did 2 or 3 months ago. We are doing it again now because we were unable to get a good recording of the event at that time, and so we're hopefully going to get a good recording of it today. So you will be able to review this on the Support Center page of our website here sometime in the next day or two. We'll have the video out there on the website. But if you were not unable to attend the previous event, welcome to today's event. So finally, today's topic is taken from our A203 accounting workbook, pages 4 through 8 to 9, essentially, 4 through 9, in terms of payroll recurring journal entry. So if you're interested in those workbooks, you can purchase those from the Church Windows website, or certainly call us where you can purchase them over the phone with us as well, okay? So when we go into accounting, basically as the paragraph at the very first page there on the top of page 4 talks about is, this is really useful if the church does not own Church Windows Payroll. Basically someone else is calculating the payroll manually, or the church is using a payroll service. You still have to get the payroll entries into the Church Windows accounting system, for bank reconciliation purposes, for your treasurer's report and all of your expenses and perhaps your budget as well, getting it into the accounting reports. We've got to get this into Church Windows accounting for your books, essentially, okay? The payroll journal entry transaction is a really easy and simple way to do that each and every time. It's a recurring transaction, essentially. You set up the structure and the framework of the transaction that you can then select time and time again, use it over and over and over. And again, it's a nice way to save some time, okay? The most important thing to take away from this is this does not generate a check, okay? There is no way to put a check in the print queue and to print a check, okay? If you want to do that, then we would recommend using or purchasing Church Windows Payroll, or using another function like Enter Bills, Pay Bills, something like that, in order to be able to get the checks you need to print, okay? Definitely, if you're outsourcing it, we would certainly encourage you to look at using Church Windows Payroll. But if you're not, and you simply need to get these transactions into Church Windows accounting, going up to transactions, other, and payroll journal entry transactions is a nice way to do that, okay? So when we come into this window, notice it's gray, everything is blank. We do have some other employees that we've got in the system here, so we've added some of them here. So when we click on, say, Dan Danielson, we would then choose paste and paste him over into our journal entry transaction to then get this transaction recorded. Well, we're not going to do that. We're going to start by setting up somebody new, okay? If you've never used this before, this list is going to be empty, okay? So to add a new person to the database or into our payroll recurring transaction, we're going to click the little plus sign right here to the left of our down arrow that then will allow us to open up and add a new person. So we click in here and we click on the plus sign. It opens up and says enter a new employee name. So we're going to type in the person's name that we're seeing in our workbook here, Catherine Jones. So then once we've entered that person's name, we click OK. Now notice that the lower half of the window is live, okay? So this information is, you enter this, okay? Church Windows it's a blank slate, essentially, waiting for you to enter the information. It doesn't automatically calculate federal taxes or Social Security amounts or anything else. Again, Church Windows Payroll would do that based on the setup there if you were to choose or go with or open or purchase Church Windows Payroll. But in this case, this is all user-driven. You key in how much gross pay the employee is earning, how much what the employer's FICA Medicare expense account is, what the net pay checking account is, and how much that net pay amount is. Well, the net pay is systematically calculated, but you'll see here in a minute how that works. So right here, we're going to say, okay, Catherine's, she's one of our musicians. We're going to choose musician salary expense. We go over, we key in how much she's earning. We're going to say $200, okay? Then we're going to come down to our employer's FICA, and we're going to choose here church portion of FICA/Medicare. And now notice to the right of that, though, I can't key anything in that amount. And the reason being is because when I actually enter the employee's contribution to Social Security, Medicare, FICA, it'll automatically match that amount right here, okay? So we can't key that in. Then we go down to our checking account and we choose our Huntington Bank checking. And again, it automatically assumes that the net pay amount is the amount that we've entered as gross pay because we haven't entered any of the withholdings or anything yet, okay? And so we would type down here under, we're not going to worry about that. We're going to come back and check our net pay amount after we've filled out and all of the rest of the forms in the other tabs. And wait, hang on, let me see, I have a question here. Yes, this video, if you own Church Windows Payroll, Marion, this probably is not going to be very of much use for you. I'm sorry. Good question. Okay, so frequency, you can type in here. This is a free field. You can type in, we could put in, monthly or weekly or semi-monthly or, bi-weekly or something like that. Or in this case, as needed. This person is hired and comes in and is a musician and comes in as an as-need basis for us. So once we've added that, then we would go to the Taxes tab. And now here is where we would type in how much Social Security is being deducted from their paycheck, how much Medicare, how much federal tax, and what account that is crediting. So we click in here and we type in, $12.40 for Social Security. Medicare would be $2.90. Federal would be $10, say, and then we tab down to our federal withholding account, and we're going to choose our 941 taxes payable. Then we would come down to state, and we would type in whatever our state tax amount was. I think it would be more than $3, albeit it could be, but let's type in 6, and again we come down to state tax. There's our state tax payable account. If there is any local taxes, those would also be entered. So here, if we choose our city taxes, county taxes payable, and I would type in whatever I have withheld as local taxes. And then finally, I would go to my allowances/deductions tab and enter anything here that would be, again, deductions would be not tax withholdings, but deductions for things like pension contributions or health insurance contributions, things like that. So we're going to say our employee is having, she wants to have, say, $15 of pay deducted to apply to pension, and I can enter any desired comments. Okay. Now, before I click done through this, I would like to point out that now when we go back to our pay information now, notice that our net pay amount here has been automatically adjusted based on the withholdings and the deductions that I have set up. Okay, so it's now deducted the taxes, the Social Security and Medicare amounts, federal income tax, state and local, and my deduction for pension contributions. Conversely, notice it's also entered the $15.30 for the employer match for Social Security and Medicare. So those, again, fields are fixed based on the information that I've entered on those other tabs. Okay? So I can now go, yep, that's exactly right. This is correct. I can now click done through this. So now when I click done, now notice Catherine appears with my other 3 employees at the top. Okay? So now let's say I've got this entered. I now want to pay these folks. So I now come in and I come to payroll journal entry transaction. I then choose the appropriate employee that I'm wanting from the list. We're going to say Dan is our senior pastor. And all I do now is go to the little dropper bottle, paste selected transaction. It now takes a few seconds, but it now brings my employee over to my reoccurring journal entries, or my journal entry transaction, okay? So it's now ready for me to paste. Now if I go, hey, this is something that I want to make a temporary change to Dan's pay, I just have to double click on it. It now moves it up to the top of my journal entry transaction, and I can make a change, temporary change to this if I wish, okay? But we're not. This is going to be something that I'm the default of my net pay of $19.50, or it's not my net amount. My net pay amount is what here? Net pay is $13.30. The overall journal entry transaction is to $19.50. So my net pay of $13.30.88 is correct. I can now post. Okay. But notice now I have to click post in between each of these. Okay. It's not allowing me to go back to my recurring journal entry transaction and add others to this batch. So I go, yep, Dan's pay is correct. I can click post. Okay, no, I'm not going to print it. I can now close out of my journal entry window. I can now go down and choose Bob, paste. It now brings him over into my journal entry transaction, and I can post their payment transaction or their payroll transaction as well. Okay, where I'm seeing the net pay amount, and I just want to point this out, it's a complicated journal entry, folks, is right here. You know, here's my debit side to my various expense accounts, credits to the various tax accounts and liabilities, and my credit account to my net pay right here. Okay, that's where I'm seeing that. Okay, so I can then now go to post and post Bob's as well. Okay, close out of my journal entry and go back to my payroll recurring. All right, so now if I need to make a permanent change to one of my employees' setups, okay, I don't have to delete it, albeit I can using this little minus sign right here next to the plus sign. You see that minus. But if I want to make a change permanently, I would go back to, I would choose the employee's name. So let me go to Dan here. He's our pastor. And I click the little pencil icon, kind of leaning on its side there. Okay, right there next to my dropper bottle. When I click on that, I'm saying I want to edit this record. Notice the floating help message now says edit selected as well. So now when I click on edit, it opens up my create journal entry recurring transaction, and I can make any desired changes to this that I wish. So let's say we're giving a raise to the pastor of $50 per pay. So I would make this $1,400. I can then come down to my gross pay amount, and I can make that $1,380. as long as my debit and credit totals at the bottom under my journal entry match, it will allow me to save my transactions. So let's say I didn't enter that correctly. So let's say I made that 1381. And now notice when I try to save, it flashes my red dot at me saying, hey, you've got an unbalanced journal entry. Okay, I'd have to go through and double check and see where my discrepancy is and make the appropriate correction. Okay? But once my debits and credits are balanced here, it will allow me to save my permanent change. Okay? So just again a reminder, if I'm needing to make a temporary change to my employee's pay, I think I'm going to go ahead and highlight that, click paste, and then I'm going to edit it over here by moving it back up to my top of my journal entry, and again making sure that I have a balanced debit and credit totals for my journal entry. That's going to be the easiest way, okay, to make a temporary change. Okay. If I need to make a permanent change to the journal entry, the recurring journal entry, I'm going to highlight it here in my list, and I'm going to click the little pencil icon to edit the selected. Okay. But this saves this setup each and every time. You don't have to come in here and use the pencil icon unless you need to make a permanent change. Okay. But if one of my future employees in the list is no longer with the church and I need to remove that, I would highlight that and click the minus sign, and it deletes that from the menu. It doesn't delete any of the transactions. All the journal entries are still there. It's just deleting that setup from the list. Okay? This is a very, very handy function, folks. Big time saver when you are wanting to enter these pay amounts, payroll amounts from an outside payroll service or by someone who's manually calculating in a different program. Can't stress enough, though, that the net pay that shows up right here next to your checking account has to match the amount that actually clears